What's going on, my dear friends? Today in this video, let's learn and master the Angular framework's latest version. So let's get started. Alright, in our last lectures, we covered the basics of Angular directives and how to use the NGIf directive. But what if we need to handle multiple conditions? How do we do that? Can you guys guess? Yes, you are correct. We are going to dive into handling multiple if conditions today. So guys, handling multiple conditions in Angular is super important, especially when we want to make our application more dynamic and responsive. In Angular, we have a new and improved way to manage multiple if conditions, which makes our code cleaner and easier to maintain. But first, let's look at the old way using the NGIf directive. So guys, let's take a practical exam to understand this better. Imagine we want to show a welcome message based on the user's role. If the user is an admin, we'll show welcome admin. If the user is a member, we'll show welcome member. And if the user is guest, we'll show welcome guest messages in the browser view. So sounds good, right? So let's see this in action. So guys, first thing first, we need a few variables for this. So let's create them. Go to the app component.ts file and create 3 variables. Is admin, is member, and is guest. After that, set their types to boolean and give them a default values. So here's how we do it. So the first variable is admin. Set this type to boolean and assign a default value false. The second variable is member. Set this type to boolean and set a default value false. So the last variable is guest. Set the type to boolean and set a default value true. So now we have the variable. So guys, now let's see how we can handle these conditions in our template using the NGIf directive. So first let's look at the old NGIf approach. So go to the component HTML file and write this code. So first let's create the admin message. So for this, create h4 tags and the message will be welcome admin. So next message for the member. So duplicate this admin message and set the message as welcome member. Next we need another message for the guest. So again duplicate this and add the message welcome guest. That's it. So save this all and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, all the messages loaded inside the browser. So why is that? Because in here still we didn't add any condition logics. So that's why this loaded all the messages inside the browser. So now let's work on the admin message condition logic. So guys, I want to load this message when this is admin value set to true. So how do we do that? Very simple. For this we use the NGIf directive. So first go to the app component HTML file and modify the h4 tag for the admin message like this. So inside this h4 opening tags, add the NGIf directive. So as you guys know, for these directives we use the asterisk symbol. So add the asterisk symbol and the directive is NGIf. After this equal sign and the condition is this variable is admin because we are dealing with the admin message, right? Alright, so guys, this NGIf directive check the value of is admin. If it is true, this message welcome admin will be displayed in the browser. So save this and go to the browser. You will notice that the admin message is not displayed because is admin is set to false by default. So if I change this is admin value to true, as you guys can see here, now this admin message displayed inside the browser. Awesome, right? So guys, now next move on to the next message, which is the member message. Same like previous. First add the NGIf directive. After this, the condition is, this time we are checking whether this is member or not. So the variable is member. So pass this variable here. So that's it. Save this and go to the browser. We cannot see the message. Why is that? Because this is member value also set to false. So change this to true. Save this all and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this time we can see this member message inside the browser. So same like this, let's work on the next message, which is this guest message. So I want to display this message when this is guest value return true. So how do we do that? For this also we can use the same approach, NGIf. So back to the app component HTML file and add the NGIf directive to this guest message. So inside this asterisk symbol and the NGIf directive. After this the condition. So pass this variable is guest. That's it. So save this and again go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this loaded the guest message as well. So guys, this is how we work with multiple if conditions, but with this approach we have several problems. So we'll discuss about this in the next lectures. So guys, in the previous lectures we learned about how to deal with multiple if-else conditions, and we loaded these messages according to the several conditions, right? So in this lecture, let's see how we can do the same scenario using the NGIf and else conditions. So for this, first thing first, let's duplicate these previous messages again and remove all the NGIf directives. So after this, let's work on the first condition, which is for this admin message. So let's write the first condition inside this first message h4 tags. So inside this asterisk symbol and NGIf directive. So the condition is same as previous, is admin. So this message will display inside the browser if this is admin value is set to true. So now what I want to do is I want to load the member message if this is admin value set to false or in the else condition. So how do we do that? So in the previous lecture for this we use another NGIf condition, right? So in this lecture let's see how to do this using the else condition. Let's do this. After this, add a semicolon and the else directive. So after this we have to pass what we are going to do in this else condition. So guys, now in order to access this member message inside this else, we need a ng template. So we cannot directly access this HTML element from this else condition. So down here, create ng template tags. We create this as a HTML custom tags. So now between these, cut and paste the member message. After this, we have to give an identifier to this ng template. So set a template variable, something, member message. So now in the else, add this template variable of this ng template. So then only this will access this ng templates and display the message inside the browser. That's it. So now go to the app component TS file. Inside this, set this is admin value to true. So save this all and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this loaded the admin message inside the browser, but we cannot see the member message. Why is that? Because now we set member message to display in the else condition. So now this is admin value is set to true. Therefore, this else condition will not execute. So that's why we cannot see the member message inside the browser. Now change this is admin value to false and save this and go to the browser. Now inside the browser, you can see the member message instead of the previous admin message. So how is this loaded inside the browser? As you guys know, now this is admin value is set to false. So therefore this will execute the else command. So in the else command, we are telling that to load this ng template value inside the browser. So that's why this member message loaded inside the browser. So guys, if you look at this carefully, even if I set this is member value to false, still this member message loaded inside the browser. So what is the problem here? As you guys can see here, for this member message, I didn't add any condition. This is directly loading from this else condition. So in order to fix this, we have to add another condition to this member message as well. So how do we do that? For this also same like previous, we have to add a NGIf condition here. So let's do this. Inside this, add the NGIf directive and set the condition this is member variable. So now with this, we are telling to this to load this message inside the browser when this is member returns true. So that's it. Save this all and go to the browser. Now as you guys can see here, this time we are not getting the member message even we set this is admin value to false. So what is the problem here again? Yes, of course, this time we are checking the both conditions. So this is member condition value also set to false. So that's why this is member message not loading inside the browser. So in order to fix this, we have to set this is member value to true. So now save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this loaded is member message inside the browser. Awesome, right? So guys, we successfully loaded the both messages, admin and the member messages. So now what I want to do is I want to load the guest message. So how do we do that? For this also we'll use the else condition. So guys, for this we'll use this is member ngif directive and load the guest message. So first thing first, let's wrap this guest message inside of ng template tags and give it identifier something guest message. Now inside this member message ngif, add the else condition and load this guest message ng template in the else condition. So next we have to add the condition to this guest message as well. So I want to load this message when the is guest value set to true. So for this also again add another ngif directive inside this guest message h4 tags and the condition is guest. So that's it. Save this all and go to the browser. Now we cannot see any messages. Now back to the app component is file and set this is guest value to true and other values to false. Again save this all and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this loaded the guest message inside the browser. So guys, this is how we deal with multiple conditions using NGIf and else directive. So guys, in the previous lecture, we learned how to deal with multiple conditions using the NGIf directive, the always. So in this lecture, let's see how we can deal the multiple conditions using the new syntax approach in Angular. So let's get started. So guys, if we compare this to the previous approach, this new syntax is very easy and clean. So let's see this in action. Down here, create if syntax scope. How do we do that? You guys already know about this, right? So add the @ symbol and the directive is if. After this, add a parenthesis and add the method scope, open and close curly brackets. So now inside this, let's deal with the admin message. So the condition is admin, pass that inside this parentheses. So next copy the admin message from the previous code, paste it inside this if scope. Now we don't need this NGIf directive, so remove it. That's it. So inside the app component is file, set this is admin value to true and set other two values to false. Save this all and go to the browser. Now as you guys can see here, this admin message loaded inside the browser, which is coming from this if syntax scope. So we successfully loaded the admin message inside the browser. Next, let's see how to load this member message inside the browser. So how do we do that? For this, like previous, we can use another if syntax block. But guys, in this new syntax approach, we have a better approach. For this, in this new syntax, we have if else block. So we can use that to display this member message inside the browser conditionally. So let's see this in action. So after this if scope, create another if else syntax block. How do you do that? This is also same like the previous. First we have to use the @ symbol and the directive is if else. So when we're using if else, we have to pass the condition, right? So create the parentheses for the condition. After this, add the if else blocks scope. Next, now we have to define the condition for this. This time we are going to display the member message. So the condition is member. So pass this inside this parentheses. So now inside this scope, copy and paste the member message h4 tags and remove the previous NGIf directive. That's it. So again go back to the app component is file and set this is member value to true and is admin value to false. So save this all and go to the browser. Inside the browser, we can see this member message. So guys, we successfully loaded the member message as well. Next, let's see how to load the guest message. For this also, we can use the same approach, another if else syntax block. So let's do this. Create another if else syntax block down here. So @ symbol and the directive is if else. After this, add the parentheses and the condition scope. So this time the condition is guest. And at last copy and paste the guest message inside the scope and remove the NGIf directive. So let's go to the app component is file and set this is guest value to true and is member value to false. So save this all and again go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this time we got the guest message printed on the browser. Awesome, right? So guys, this is how we deal with multiple conditions using the new directive if syntax blocks in Angular. So guys, in the previous lectures, we learned how to deal with multiple conditions in Angular. But guys, in the first approach, we use the separate NGIf for all scenarios. In the second step, we use the else approach. So guys, some of you guys may wonder, what is the difference between these two approaches? So if you look at this first code, NGIf, a bit cleaner than the else approach. So what is the difference between these? So guys, in the first approach, only using the NGIf, it's not a good practice when we're dealing with multiple conditions. So why is that? Because when we write NGIf for all conditions, Angular compiler will check and read all the NGIf and apply the conditions. So in other hand, if we use the else condition, Angular compiler will look inside the NGIf directive. If this is return true, this will print the message and stop executing from here. If this return false, then only this will look inside the else condition and move on to the next. So if we use only the NGIf, this will read all the NGIf directives, even this first one return true. So this is the main difference between these two approaches. So in our example, this is just a simple code, but think in a real world application, we write hundreds of conditions in a single application. So in that case, if we write so many NGIf directives, this can cause our application buggy and slow. So when dealing with multiple conditions, always remember to use the else condition when it can be used. So we talk about the old approach, so this NGIf directive, but this is valid for the new syntax approach as well. In the example, I wrote these conditions using the else if blocks, but think for this also we can write multiple if blocks, same like previous. So if you wrote multiple if blocks, in here also Angular compiler will read and try to execute all the if blocks. If you use the else if blocks, then if this first condition return true, Angular compiler will not read the other else if blocks. If this first condition return false, then only Angular compiler will go to the second if else condition. If the second else condition return true, then again Angular compiler will stop executing this and load this message inside the browser. Guys, think if the second condition also return false, then Angular compiler will move on to the next and so on. So hope you guys got the idea. So once again guys, this is very important. When we dealing with multiple conditions, as a good practice, always try to use else blocks. Otherwise, this can make our application slow. So hope you guys got the idea. Alright, so let's move on to the next chapter.